So hey everybody, welcome to my chat. I don't really have any slides here. I kind of thought about busting out one of our onboarding decks and just figured it would not really hit the spot. I'm here to talk about Loblaw and Loblaw Digital. So I personally work at Loblaw Digital, which is the e-commerce division of Loblaw's. I'm assuming those of you who are Canadians are familiar with Loblaw's. We've got our various grocery stores, including No Frills, Zehrs, Fortino's, Maxi, Provigo, and Superstore. We also Shoppers Drug Mart and Joe Fresh, along with a few other brands that you may be less familiar with, such as, say, Wellwise. And in any case, so it's a company that if you're a Canadian, you've likely interacted with at some point. 80% of Canadians shop at one of our stores once a week, which is a pretty big audience, and that's what makes it a really exciting opportunity. So I'll talk a little bit about Loblaw Digital specifically because that's the world I know. So I lead all of the data functions at Loblaw Digital, which is the e-commerce division. So we have the PC Express brand. So if you've bought groceries online from us, that's us. Both pickup and delivery launched relatively recently, I think earlier this year. It's a fantastic experience in this pandemic. It was a timely addition to the portfolio. Beauty boutique for cosmetics, and the digital pharmacy, and of course Joe Fresh online. We also last year launched a new marketplace in a bid to kind of move in the omni-channel direction, and it has a variety of additional non-grocery categories such as I think pet and games, and we recently launched the kind of home and entertainment category as well, which meant PlayStation 5 launch, which you may or may not have participated in. Did anybody here buy a PS5 through Superstore this past couple of weeks? Anybody? Awesome. Right on. Did it go well? Any hiccups, any wrinkles? No? Okay, that's good. That's exciting. So personally, I came to Loblaw's about 3 years ago after working at a variety of Silicon Valley startups, and LD has kind of pitched itself as being a startup within the enterprise. It's becoming a little bit, we're getting big enough that that's becoming a little bit harder to maintain, but we are trying to maintain that, that agility and that small company feel within digital, because it's what allows us to kind of move fast and innovate. And I think the thing that pulled me in was the really large data set and the complexity of the business. Retail, on the face of it, looks traditional and old-fashioned, but the truth is there's a ton of complexity in the way the business operates, and there's a ton of data related to customers. So we have a broad spectrum of interesting problems that we work on every day, including recommendation systems, including capacity management and optimization, including growth and marketing problems. So we look at propensity modeling and churn. We look at how do we predict availability on the shelf, and then beyond digital, there's the whole enterprise data group as well. The supply chain that leads into the store ends up being under their purview. So within digital, we have to worry about that because we fulfill from our stores, and so we think about. So we have to work closely with those teams. But then we also think about how do we build engaging experiences. So one thing we launched this year that was really exciting is content delivery in the PC Optimum app. It's still getting started, but the idea really is, can we put in videos of how to cook and how to apply makeup and how to do other things to really fulfill the promise of helping Canadians live life well? How do we provide you with things that enrich your life that tie directly onto the things that we're selling? And it's actually a very exciting opportunity to really build engaging experiences for our customers that tie together sales with things that actually improve people's lives. And then, of course, we have the whole healthcare portfolio, which is also very interesting. I don't personally work that closely with it, but we do have a whole team that's looking at, alongside the name of the healthcare business, but the different pharmacy and healthcare businesses that we have, and how we can tie that in to build better value for our customers by understanding their engagement there. That one's a bit tricky because you have the obvious privacy and sensitivity, but I think it's still a place where there's room to provide a lot of value for our customers and is an interesting area of inquiry. Yes. I guess I don't like one thing. I mean, I guess I should just do a Q&A. Are there questions that people have that they'd like to ask about me, about digital, about the rest of Loblaws? No? You're a shy bunch. We are, of course, okay. We are, of course, always hiring. We're hiring, a broad spectrum of people. Within digital, we're hiring data scientists and data engineers and BI developers. And we do look, well, okay, we have a question. What ML models are we training? So we have a few. We have the one, I think the first real ML model that went into production after I started is used for email recommendations. So if you see the PC Express or the Beauty Boutique flyer emails that come out every week, at the bottom of the page, there's personalized recommendations, and they're actually really good. And that set of kind of customer and product embeddings is also being used to drive a few other things. We launched an ML-based search re-ranking algorithm back in April, and that's had some personalization folded into it over the course of this year. And we also have some work on labor forecasting and availability estimation, as well as capacity planning. Let's see here. Just for fun. Well, you know what? I'll put the spotlight on somebody. I'll have a member of my team jump in and join me to talk about the specifics of some of the models that he's working on. Amir, why don't you jump in and help out answer some of the specifics on what are we actually doing with on the specific models and technologies we're using. With a big one, how do you link and access data across is a challenge. Yeah, so Frank, I mean, collaborative filtering is, I think, like everywhere else, is kind of the basis of a lot of the recommender systems. The details of how it's implemented, I would have to defer to the team, but I can try and pull in an answer. You link and access the data across. So for us, your question, I would say that has been one of the big challenges. When I started, we had an on-prem Hadoop cluster that had some sales data on it and a few other things. And I think one of the big journeys and successes has been getting all of the company's data into a place where it's easily accessible. And I know that we started down that journey of moving things into GCP and getting it into BigQuery. The enterprise itself has started taking on some of that journey as well in the past year or so. And so we're getting to where most of the company's data is in clean and curated data sets in BigQuery that are easily accessible. And that really makes it much easier to build cool stuff. And that's been really exciting. The offers on PC Optimum. So the team at Digital doesn't handle that today. I think there's a team at the enterprise data team is working on rebuilding that engine right now, although I don't know the details of it. They are personalized, Abdul. I don't know anything about the algorithm, though. I don't have visibility on it, unfortunately. Calvin, for the content creation part, do you see any direct relationship with sales, and how would you measure it? So I have some very specific ideas on product features that we would build about that related to sales, and I don't want to talk about that in this forum necessarily, but you can speculate as to cool things we might be able to do. I think, to measure it directly, you would have to have a logged in customer. So you have to have, some consensual sharing of identity, and you'd have to have the conversion be in an e-commerce environment. In practice, you could do some sort of estimation, but if a customer views a piece of content and then uses their PC Optimum card to buy something that's related to the content, you can establish a link, and then you can mention the strength of the link based upon the channel and the time lag, and kind of figure out your overall confidence. Try and suss out a halo effect if there were other ads that might have driven it, or if they had previous purchases. But ideally, you'd want to have a direct link where it was a logged in customer and you had their PCO identity the whole way through. Edge analytics and computing possibilities with 5G. That's an interesting topic. And I mean, I think that I will say, like, if you go to some of our stores, you can now see, what do you call it? Electronic price tags. And that's kind of the start of that idea, is having the prices update, digitally from a, network IoT price tags in the store. I think there's a lot more stuff that can be explored there. Can't really speak to any, ongoing initiatives within the company. But I think that there's definitely a lot of cool stuff that can happen there, and it's some exciting possibilities to drive interesting experiences. I mean, in particular, the one thing that I can talk about that sort of, I think, casts a little bit of light on the problems and solutions that are presented by that, with our picking apps that the users, the employees use to go pick the online grocery orders. One of the problems we have is bandwidth on the internet connection into the store. And how do you push the firmware updates out to the devices without saturating the link? And so one thing that we have been doing is putting Mac Minis in the store to distribute the firmware updates to the devices, so that you only have to push it down the pipe once, and all of the devices used in the store can benefit. And so I think there's a lot of further possibilities on how can we build some level of edge computing in the store to economize the bandwidth and, push the capabilities out to the edge where it makes sense for them to live. How do you get buy-in from other parts of Loblaw to prioritize any personalization features or ML products and implement them with their products? I would say that in terms of the way that digital works, the fact that digital does kind of operate at arm's length and have a good deal of autonomy helps. So we work with the product organization inside of Loblaw Digital that kind of owns the e-commerce experiences. And we work with them to kind of think about what experiences for our customers do we want to build and what role should ML play. And like this, one of the things that I've worked really hard on the last 3 years has been building relationships with the product leaders, so that when they're thinking about what they want to build, front and center is what is actually possible. What does ML actually bring to the table? Because what you don't want is for other teams to come to data science or machine learning after they've come up with their whole idea and say, hey, we need a feed that describes this. What you want is to start with what's kind of your blue sky vision for the perfect customer experience, and then kind of work with the teams that understand the data and the machine learning capabilities to think how much of that is actually possible. Because then you really end up with a system that's well architected, that builds, that ends up being a really seamless, frictionless experience for the customer and delivers the most value, and really takes advantage of the capabilities of the teams we built. The COVID lockdown. That was interesting. That was an adventure. The first couple weeks of March, not surprisingly, demand for online grocery orders absolutely went through the ceiling. It was an exciting time in a lot of ways, in the sense that because all of a sudden we hit scale that we hadn't imagined we were going to hit for another few years, we had to really, make a whole bunch of changes in a hurry. So all of a sudden we had an order of magnitude more traffic and more sales online than we'd ever had before. And so we spent a lot of March and April looking at how we could scale the website. And so that was actually kind of exciting, because it meant that a lot of architectural changes and kind of technology choices that had been, continually postponed because they weren't urgent and building features was more important, suddenly came front and center. And so it gave us a chance to really fix a lot of the overall tech stack problems that made room for a lot of, faster improvement down the line during that crisis mode. There also, of course, were lots of store operations problems. So, we had two big bottlenecks. One was the website, and the other was the store. We had, more traffic on the site and more orders going through on the store, so that we were, taxed in terms of floor space and labor. And so it really, it was, well, I mean, look, COVID has sucked for everyone, but it was one of those crises where we took advantage of it as an opportunity to improve a lot of things about the way we operate. And so I think that we, as an organization, had a lot of strong growth as a side effect of that. a few features that we had kind of sitting on the shelf that we had we hadn't quite gotten fully prioritized became more important. And so it was, it was an interesting time. In time of COVID, do I observe gender or race bias in purchase logs? There is no gender or race information in the purchase logs. We don't collect that. That's the kind of information that you can try to infer based upon looking at, that's never anything that we have hard and fast. We can try and infer it, but I don't know if, I don't know that I have a good answer to that one. I see Faraz is back in. Does that mean I'm getting to time?
You could probably take one more question.
All right. Is Loblaw Digital building AI models that are production ready? And if yes, how are you productionizing them? So that actually is something that I think we've worked really hard on. From my point of view, one of the problems with the field of kind of data science, AI, machine learning is that larger companies in particular focus on building POCs that go nowhere. And if you're going to build it, you need to find a way to ship it. And so one of the things that we've really worked hard on is how do we build those relationships to make that possible? So we use Bigtable heavily to cache the things that are computed in batch because it's a low latency, high volume store. We build all of our models as REST APIs for the application to talk to, which makes for an easy loose coupling between ML services and the rest of the application that other developers understand. It's very simple. You send us a request for a type of recommendation. The recommendation comes back. We commit to a performance SLA. And we've taken advantage of our really strong DevOps and SRE organizations to build robust Kubernetes-based services. Kubernetes is a lot of car. It requires a lot of expertise. But if you've already baked that into your organization, taking advantage of it actually accelerates your work. And there's a framework we've been using on a couple of our services called Selden that a member of my team presented about back in June. And what's cool about it is it builds out a framework for doing kind of multi-arm bandit style testing on models. And what we've been pushing towards with some success this year is, you define the contract with the application as a REST API. And you define your performance SLAs in terms of both accuracy and actual, response time with product and business. And then behind the scenes, you can, cycle and ship new models to your heart's content, as long as you can stay within those guardrails. And so it creates a universe where you can be quietly, continuously improving without having to go through formal change management cycles. And I think that makes a big difference, because now the productionization looks like any other software deliverable, and what you do behind the scenes is letting your team do what they do best.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Richard, for a great talk. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Please do visit the booth in the expo session to speak to Richard more. Plus, also there is also team members from Loblaw as well. Thank you, everyone.